Donald Gleydson was born Donald Nappy and was 10 years old when his 33-year-old mother died of breast cancer in January 1947. He has claimed to have had a difficult childhood and was apprehended breaking into a shop in 1948, but was granted a police caution or severe warning due to his age and circumstances. In April 1955, at the age of 18, he married Irene Tate, a 20-year-old. His wife convinced him to resign from the army, where he was a national serviceman in the King's Own Yorkshire Light Infantry. Catherine, their daughter, was born in 1960. Nappy changed the family name to Gleydson 4 years after his daughter was born to spare her the teasing and harassment he had undergone at school and in the army due to his surname's closeness to the word diaper. According to David Bell and Harry Hawkes, Nappy purchased a cab firm from a man named Gleydson and chose to use that name rather than the previous one. A second idea, advanced by a lodger, Lena Fernley, who stayed with the Gleydson family in the early 1960s, is that Gleydson derived the name from an ice cream van from which he and Irene frequently purchased ice cream for their daughter. In an interview with the BBC, Fernley stated that he told her, "I like that name." During his early years of criminality, Gleydson conducted almost 400 house burglaries undetected. Prior to his rise to fame as the Black Panther, he was known by a variety of aliases, including the Phantom and Handy Andy. To keep the cops guessing, he changed his modus operandi every few weeks. For instance, he would steal a radio from each residence and leave it nearby. After a pattern of behavior was established, he would quit it and pursue other interests. However, the proceeds from ordinary housebreaking were insufficient, and following the theft of guns and ammunition from a house in Cheshire, he increased his criminal activity by robbing tiny post offices. Between 1971 and 1974, Gleydson committed 18 such offences. His crimes became increasingly violent as he attempted to defend himself against occupants willing to resist and defend their property. In February 1972, he got access to a sub-post office located in a private residence on Rochdale Road, Heywood, Lancashire, during the night. The postmaster, Leslie Richardson, and his wife awoke to find a hooded guy in their bedroom. Richardson leapt from bed to confront the invader while his wife dialed 911. Throughout the scuffle, Gleydson demonstrated his sawn-off shotgun to Richardson and stated, in a phony West Indian accent, "This is loaded." Richardson observed that the pistol was pointed upward and that no one was in immediate risk of being shot. "We'll see if it's loaded," he said, and pulled the trigger himself, shooting 2 holes in the ceiling. Richardson resumed the fight by removing Gleyson's black hood. Gleydson stomped on Richardson's foot, breaking numerous toes and groin, kneeing him. Gleydson fled empty-handed as Richardson fell on the floor. Richardson provided authorities with a detailed description of his disguised invader, which proved to be wrong in numerous ways. Numerous further photofits of Gleydson were similarly unhelpful to the police, but one, taken by sub-postmistress Margaret Grayland, was exceptionally exact. Gleydson began his career as a serial killer in 1974, when he committed his first 3 killings. He murdered 2 sub-postmasters and the husband of a sub-postmistress during post office robberies, as well as viciously assaulting sub-postmistress Margaret Grayland. He assassinated Donald Skepper in February 1974 in Harrogate, North Yorkshire, 8, Derek Astin in September 1974 in Baxenden, Lancashire, and Sidney Grayland in November 1974 in Langley, West Midlands. Gleydson earned the moniker Black Panther following Astin's widow Marion's description of her husband's killer as so swift, he was like a panther during an interview with a local television reporter. The adventurous reporter concluded his post by asking, "Where is this Black Panther?" in reference to the killer's dark clothes, and the moniker stuck. Gleydson was arrested in connection with the post office shootings after he shot security guard Gerald Smith 6 times while investigating a ransom trail. The shots were fired from the same .22 LR pistol used to murder Astin and Grayland, forensic investigation revealed. Leslie Whittle was a 17-year-old high school student when she became Gleyson's youngest victim. Whittle was the daughter of George Whittle, a well-known coach transport business owner, and his mistress. Whittle had endowed his mistress and their children, Ronald and Leslie, with his whole fortune. After reading an article about a family feud over George Whittle's will, Nielsen devised a 3-year strategy to get a portion of this inheritance. Nielsen broke into the Whittle family house in Highley, Shropshire, on the 14th of January 1975 and abducted Leslie from her bedroom. Nielsen reasoned that the family would not notice a major loss of £50,000 from their fortune and hence made a second demand for that figure in a note left at the family home. Due to a sequence of police blunders and other circumstances, Ronald Whittle was unable to deliver the ransom money at the location and time specified by the abductor. Leslie Whittle's body was discovered on the 7th of March 1975, hanging from a wire at the bottom of the drainage hole in Bathpool Park, Kidsgrove, Staffordshire, where he had tethered her. Following post-mortem testing, it was determined that Whittle died as a result of vagal inhibition, not strangling. Her heart had stopped due to the impact of the fall. According to some observers, Nielsen may have thrown Whittle off the ledge where he had detained her. Another possibility is that Nielsen was not present when Whittle died, and that he panicked and escaped without returning to the shaft on the night of the botched ransom collection, believing the police were closing in on him. Whittle may have been living in the dark for an extended period of time prior to her death. Whittle weighed only 98 pounds, 44 kilograms, when she was discovered. Her stomach and intestines were completely empty, she had lost a significant amount of weight, and she was emaciated. He decided that she had been fasting for at least 3 days, the time required for food to pass through the body, but that the actual duration could have been much longer. Gilbert Gray QC detailed the conditions Nielsen provided for Whittle in his closing argument, highlighting the ways in which he attempted to ensure her comfort. For example, he asked the jury if they believed that any hangman's rope would be padded and lagged with 77.5 inches of elastoplast to prevent chafing, or that any scaffold would be cushioned for comfort with a rubber mattress and sleeping bags. Whittle would not have died if the wire had not hooked on a stanchion, the QC stated, because her feet were barely 6 inches from the shaft's bottom. This is not a fabrication on the part of the defense. Her height from the neck was 4 feet, and the ligature was 5 feet long, totaling 9 feet. The drop from the landing to the tunnel floor was 6 feet 11 inches, which meant that had it not been for the unforeseen snagging that reduced the tether, she would have landed on her feet at the bottom of the shaft. He questioned why Nielsen bothered to keep her alive after recording the ransom messages, stating that he could have easily clubbed her to death and buried her body in the woods. Gray concluded his remarks by saying, "I contend that Leslie Whittle's fall from the platform was an unanticipated misadventure, unplanned and unintended." Nielsen embarked on an endeavor that went horribly wrong. In December 1975, 2 police officers, Tony White and Stuart Mackenzie, were patrolling the main A60 trunk route leading out of Mansfield in North Nottinghamshire in a Panda vehicle when they observed a short wiry guy passing with a holdall. He averted his face as he passed the police cruiser, attracting Mackenzie's attention. They summoned him for questioning on a routine basis. The man stated that he was returning home from work and then extracted a sawn-off shotgun from his holdall. He directed White to take a seat at the back of the car. The police officer attempted to open the car door, but the gunman yelled, "There is no time for that, hop into the seat." The officer did so, and the gunman took up residence in the passenger seat, pushing the weapon into Mackenzie's armpit. He directed them to travel 6 miles to Rainworth and warned them not to look at him. This was a challenge for Mackenzie. He gently explained to the gunman that they were traveling in the incorrect direction and that he would have to reverse the automobile. The gunman consented, but told both officers that if any tricks were played, they would both die. As they drove down Southwell Road, the gunman inquired whether they had any rope. Mackenzie approached a fork in the road while White feigned to look. He asked, "Which way, left or right?" as he violently turned the steering wheel one way and then the other, prompting the gunman to gaze at the road ahead. White noticed the rifle drop a few inches and recognized his opportunity. He pulled the gun forward and Mackenzie stamped on the brake. They came to a screeching halt before Rainworth's Junction chip shop. White's hand was grazed by the bullet when the rifle went off. Mackenzie jumped from the driver's seat, colliding with the road. He stumbled to his feet and screamed for aid as he went towards the fish and chip restaurant. Roy Morris and Keith Wood fled the queue outside the chip shop and assisted in overpowering Nielsen. Wood struck the gunman in the neck, while Morris seized his wrists and held them in place for White to put on the handcuffs. Locals attacked him so viciously that the police were forced to intervene. They dragged Nielsen to the iron railings beside a bus stop and shackled him there before summoning backup. Nielsen's fingerprints were discovered to match one of those collected in the drain shaft during the ensuing examination. Nielsen gave an 18-page statement to DCS Harold Wright, head of Staffordshire SID, and Commander Morrison of Scotland Yard during his interview at Kidsgrove Police Station, where he confessed to the kidnap of Whittle. The statement was handwritten by DCI Walter Boreham. Nielsen's defence barrister Gilbert Gray QC alleged during his trial at Oxford Crown Court that Whittle fell from the ledge accidentally and died as a result. He noted that Nielsen had fed her chicken soup, spaghetti, and meatballs, as well as purchased fish and chips, chicken legs, and polo mints for her. The prosecution refuted these assertions. Nielsen gave his victim with a hypothermic sleeping bag, mattresses, survival blankets, and survival packs, as well as a bottle of brandy, 6 paperback books, a copy of the Times and 2 magazines for reading, a little puzzle, and 2 brilliantly colored napkins. The cops discovered these objects in the shaft and in the subterranean canal that runs beneath it. Nielsen was convicted of kidnapping and murdering Leslie Whittle in July 1976 and sentenced to life in prison. He was convicted of the killings of 2 postmasters and the spouse of a postmistress 3 weeks later. Nielsen earned a total of 5 life sentences. Nielsen was then sentenced to an additional 61 years by Mr. Justice Mars Jones, 21 years for kidnapping Leslie Whittle and 10 years for blackmailing her mother. 3 further 10-year sentences were issued for the 2 burglary counts stemming from the theft of firearms and ammunition, as well as for possessing the sawn-off shotgun with the intent to endanger life. All sentences were to run simultaneously. According to the judge, Nielsen's offences were so heinous that they set him apart from nearly every other convicted murderer in recent years. Nielsen's defence team, Barrington Black, Norman Jones, and Gilbert Gray, all maintained that his conviction was a reflection of public opinion, a reaction to the attention surrounding the search for the abduction and killer, and that he should have been convicted solely of manslaughter. Nielsen was convicted not guilty of the attempted murders of sub-postmistress Margaret Grayland and PC Tony White, but was found guilty of inflicting grievous bodily harm on Mrs. Grayland and possessing a firearm with a purpose to endanger life in Mansfield. A charge of attempted murder against Nielsen was dropped due to legal complications. Nielsen shot security guard Gerald Smith 6 times while checking the Whittle ransom trail. Smith was assassinated more than a year and a day later. Nielsen should be granted a lifetime tariff, the trial judge recommended. Gray visited his client in a cell beneath the courthouse following the verdicts and discovered Nielsen curled up in a fetal posture in the corner of his cell, apparently depressed and overwhelmed with regret for Whittle and her family. According